Rich youth mock female bus driver, but get a surprise when she takes off her scarf. When Sarah Jenkins took over her shift as a bus driver on that sunny morning in Los Angeles, she never imagined that her world was about to turn upside down. A group of wealthy young people, a mysterious scarf, and a secret buried deep in her past were about to collide, triggering a series of events that would not only reveal Sarah's true identity, but also place her at the center of a conspiracy that could change the fate of humanity forever. Get ready for a thrilling journey of discoveries, betrayals, and impossible choices, where nothing is as it seems and the future of the human race is at stake. The early morning sun had barely peeked over the horizon when Sarah Jenkins slipped behind the wheel of the number 42 bus in downtown Los Angeles. At 35, she was younger than most of her colleagues, but the dark circles under her eyes and the deep creases etched into her forehead told a story of someone who had lived 1,000 lives. Sarah adjusted her faded blue uniform and tightened the plain brown scarf that covered her hair, a necessity in her line of work, she'd learned. As she fired up the engine, she couldn't help but think about how different her life was just a year ago. The memories threatened to overwhelm her, but she pushed them aside. She had a job to do. The first few stops were uneventful, the usual crowd of sleepy commuters and caffeine-addicted office workers. But as the bus approached the affluent neighborhood of Beverly Hills, Sarah's grip on the steering wheel tightened. This was always the hardest part of her route. Right on cue, a group of boisterous young adults, dressed in designer clothes that probably cost more than Sarah's monthly salary, clambered onto the bus. Their loud laughter and careless chatter filled the air, a stark contrast to the quiet demeanor of the other passengers. "Oh my God, can you believe we have to take the bus?" A tall blonde girl whined, her voice dripping with disdain. "Daddy's going to hear about this. I can't believe our driver bailed on us." Her friend, a young man with perfectly coiffed hair and a watch that glinted in the morning light, snickered. "Well, at least we're getting the authentic peasant experience. Maybe we can write about it for our social justice class." Sarah's jaw clenched, but she kept her eyes on the road. She'd learned long ago that engaging with passengers like these only led to trouble. But as the group made their way to the back of the bus, their comments grew louder and more pointed. "Hey, check out our driver," one of them called out. "Looks like she raided her grandma's closet. That scarf is so last century." The group erupted in laughter, and Sarah felt her cheeks burn with a mixture of anger and embarrassment. She caught a glimpse of her reflection in the rearview mirror, the same reflection she'd been avoiding for months. The scarf, the uniform, the lines of worry, they were all part of a disguise she never thought she'd have to wear. As the bus wound its way through the streets of Beverly Hills, Sarah's mind drifted to the series of events that had led her to this moment. The life she'd left behind, the secrets she carried, and the impossible choice she'd had to make. Little did her tormentors know, but beneath that faded uniform and unfashionable scarf lay a story that would turn their world upside down. The traffic light ahead turned red, and Sarah eased the bus to a stop. In that moment of stillness, she made a decision. She was tired of hiding, tired of enduring the snide remarks and cruel laughter. Her hand moved towards her scarf, fingers curling around the worn fabric. It was time to show these kids exactly who they were dealing with. And as Sarah began to unwrap her scarf, she knew that nothing would ever be the same again. As Sarah's fingers grazed the edge of her scarf, a sudden jolt rocked the bus. Her hands instinctively returned to the wheel, the moment of revelation abruptly postponed. Through the windshield, she saw a sleek black SUV had cut in front of the bus, narrowly avoiding a collision. "Jesus H. Christ," Sarah muttered, her refined accent slipping for a moment. She quickly caught herself, but not before the passenger nearest to her shot her a curious look. The group of rich kids at the back erupted into laughter and cheers, apparently thrilled by the near miss. Sarah's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror, studying their faces. For a split second, her gaze locked with that of a young man sitting slightly apart from the others. Unlike his friends, he wasn't laughing. Instead, he was staring at Sarah with an intensity that made her skin prickle. As the bus resumed its journey, Sarah's mind wandered to a similar morning, exactly 1 year ago. She had been in a different vehicle then, a $300,000 Bentley, racing through the streets of New York City. The memory was so vivid she could almost smell the leather seats and hear the urgent voice of her father on the phone. "Sarah, darling, you need to disappear. Now." His words had been clipped, panic evident even through the phone's tinny speaker. "They've found out about Project Prometheus. Everyone associated with Blackstone Industries is in danger." Sarah shook her head, trying to dispel the memory. But like a dam breaking, the thoughts flooded in. The frantic packing, the midnight flight to Los Angeles, the painful goodbyes. She remembered the weight of the USB drive in her pocket, containing information that could topple governments and reshape the global economy. A derisive laugh from the back of the bus snapped Sarah back to the present. "Hey, Grandma," it was the blonde girl again. "Did you forget how to drive? The light's been green for forever." Sarah started, realizing she'd been lost in thought at a traffic light. She accelerated, her cheeks burning with embarrassment. As she drove, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched, not just by the entitled kids at the back, but by someone else. Her eyes darted to the side mirror, scanning the vehicles behind them. There 3 cars back. A black sedan that had been following them for the last 10 minutes. Sarah's heart rate quickened. Was it just paranoia? Or had her past finally caught up with her? As if on cue, her burner phone vibrated in her pocket. Sarah knew she shouldn't check it while driving, but the years of living on edge had honed her instincts. Making sure the road ahead was clear, she quickly glanced at the message. "They've found you. Get out now." D. Sarah's blood ran cold. In that moment, she made a split-second decision that would change everything. Instead of continuing on her route, she abruptly turned the bus down a side street, eliciting surprised yelps from her passengers. "Hey, what the hell?" one of the rich kids shouted. "This isn't the way to rodeo drive." Sarah ignored them, her mind racing. She needed a plan, fast. As she navigated the unfamiliar streets, her eyes landed on an approaching tunnel. It wasn't much, but it might give her the cover she needed. Just before entering the tunnel, Sarah caught sight of the young man who had been watching her earlier. He was now standing, gripping the handrail, his eyes wide with what looked like recognition. As darkness enveloped the bus, Sarah made her move. In one fluid motion, she pulled off her scarf, revealing a shock of vibrant red hair. She reached under her seat, grabbing a small backpack she'd stashed there months ago for this very scenario. The bus emerged from the tunnel into the bright LA sunshine, but Sarah Jenkins was gone. In her place sat a stranger, a woman with fiery red hair, designer sunglasses, and an air of unmistakable authority. The rich kids at the back fell silent, their jaws dropping in unison. But Sarah had no time to relish their shock. She had mere moments to disappear before her pursuers caught up. As she prepared to bring the bus to a stop, her eyes met those of the watchful young man in the mirror once more. And this time, she saw something that chilled her to her core. A small pin on his lapel, bearing the logo of Blackstone Industries. The game, it seemed, was far from over. The bus screeched to a halt at the corner of a bustling intersection. Sarah's heart raced as she quickly assessed her surroundings. The black sedan that had been tailing them was nowhere in sight, but she knew better than to let her guard down. "Everyone off the bus. Now!" Sarah commanded, her voice carrying an authority that silenced even the most vocal of the rich kids. As the confused and grumbling passengers filed out, Sarah's eyes never left the young man with the Blackstone pin. He hung back, letting others pass, his gaze locked on Sarah. When the last passenger had disembarked, he approached her slowly, hands raised in a non-threatening gesture. "Ms. Blackstone," he said quietly, "I'm Agent Tom Reeves. Your father sent me." Sarah's hand instinctively moved to the concealed weapon in her bag. "Prove it," she hissed. Tom's eyes darted nervously to the windows. "Phoenix rises at dawn," he whispered, the code phrase her father had insisted she memorize. Sarah's shoulders sagged with momentary relief, but she quickly steeled herself again. "We need to move. Now." As they stepped off the bus, The screech of tires filled the air. The black sedan had reappeared, joined by two more identical vehicles. Men in dark suits poured out, their hands reaching inside their jackets. "This way." Tom grabbed Sarah's arm, pulling her towards a narrow alley between two buildings. They ran, Sarah's mind whirling with questions. How had they found her? Who could she trust? The sounds of pursuit echoed behind them as they weaved through the back streets of Los Angeles. "There's a safe house 2 blocks from here," Tom panted as they ran. "We just need to." His words were cut short by the crack of a gunshot. Tom stumbled, a red stain blossoming on his shoulder. "Tom!" Sarah cried, reaching to support him. "Keep going," he gasped, pressing a small key into her hand. 1256 Oakwood Avenue. "Go!" With a final push, Tom shoved Sarah towards a fire escape. She hesitated for a split second, then began to climb. The shouts of their pursuers grew louder. As Sarah reached the rooftop, she allowed herself one glance back. Tom had disappeared into the maze of alleys below, leading their chasers away from her. A pang of guilt hit her, but she pushed it aside. She couldn't let his sacrifice be in vain. Sarah raced across the rooftops, her years of parkour training, a hobby her father had insisted was frivolous, now proving invaluable. She leapt from building to building, her mind frantically trying to piece together the puzzle. The safe house, the USB drive, Project Prometheus. It all led back to her father and Blackstone Industries. But why? What was so important that people were willing to kill for it? As she approached Oakwood Avenue, Sarah spotted a nondescript brownstone with the number 1256. She climbed down a drainpipe, her designer clothes, hastily donned during her bus escape, now torn and dirty. With shaking hands, she inserted the key Tom had given her into the lock. It turned smoothly, and Sarah slipped inside, closing the door behind her. The interior of the safe house was sparse but clean. Sarah's eyes immediately landed on a laptop sitting on a desk in the corner. She approached it cautiously, noticing a sticky note attached to the screen with a series of numbers, a password. As she booted up the computer, a notification popped up. One new email, sender unknown. Subject line, "The truth about Project Prometheus." Sarah's finger hovered over the mousepad. Opening this email could change everything. But did she really want to know the truth? Did she have a choice? Just then, a muffled sound from outside caught her attention. Car doors slamming, footsteps approaching. Her pursuers had found her. With a deep breath, Sarah clicked on the email. As the attachment began to download, she realized that her life would never be the same again. The secrets of Project Prometheus were about to be revealed, and Sarah Blackstone was at the center of it all. The footsteps outside grew louder. Sarah's eyes darted between the loading bar on the screen and the door. It was going to be a race against time, and the stakes couldn't be higher. The download bar crawled agonizingly slowly as the footsteps outside grew louder. Sarah's eyes darted between the screen and the door, her heart pounding in her chest. Just as the file finished downloading, the doorknob began to turn. In a flash, Sarah yanked the USB drive from her pocket and plugged it into the laptop. She quickly began transferring the newly downloaded files, praying it would be fast enough. The door burst open. 2 men in dark suits rushed in, guns drawn. "Freeze! Hands where we can see them!" Sarah raised her hands slowly, her mind racing. The file transfer was at 89%, 90%, 91%. "Step away from the computer, Ms. Blackstone," one of the men ordered, his voice cold and professional. Sarah complied, taking a small step back. Her eyes flicked to the screen. 97%, 98%. "You don't understand what you're dealing with," Sarah said, trying to buy time. "Project Prometheus isn't what you think it is." The second man snorted. "Save it for the interrogation room, sweetheart." 100%. Transfer complete. In one fluid motion, Sarah grabbed the USB drive and dove behind the desk. Gunshots rang out, splintering the wood around her. She crawled rapidly towards the window, adrenaline masking the pain of glass shards cutting into her palms. Without hesitation, Sarah crashed through the window, tumbling onto the fire escape. She could hear shouts and more gunshots above her as she scrambled down the metal stairs. Her feet hit the pavement and she took off running, clutching the precious USB drive. She weaved through startled pedestrians, her lungs burning as she pushed herself to the limit. A black SUV screeched to a halt in front of her, cutting off her escape. Sarah skidded to a stop, ready to change direction, when the passenger door flew open. "Get in!" It was Tom, his shoulder hastily bandaged, his face pale with pain. Sarah hesitated for a split second before diving into the vehicle. Tom floored the accelerator before she could even close the door, the SUV roaring away from their pursuers. I thought you were..." Sarah gasped, trying to catch her breath. "Takes more than a bullet to keep me down," Tom grimaced, swerving through traffic. "Did you get the files?" Sarah nodded, holding up the USB drive. "But I don't understand. What is Project Prometheus? Why is everyone trying to kill us?" Tom's face grew grim. "It's not a what, Sarah. It's a who. And the truth, well, it's going to change everything." He reached into his jacket, wincing at the movement, and pulled out a tablet. "Plug in the drive. Let's see what we're dealing with." As Sarah connected the USB, the tablet came to life, displaying a series of complex diagrams and lines of code. But what caught her attention was a photo in the corner of the screen. It showed a young boy, no more than 10 years old, with familiar piercing green eyes. Sarah gasped. That's me. But how?" Tom's eyes widened as he glanced at the screen. "My God," he whispered. "It's true. You're patient zero." Before Sarah could ask what he meant, the back window of the SUV exploded in a shower of glass. Their pursuers had caught up. "Hold on," Tom yelled, yanking the steering wheel hard to the right. The SUV careened down a narrow alley, scraping against the walls on both sides. Sarah clutched the tablet, her mind reeling. Patient zero? The photo of her as a boy? None of it made sense, and yet she knew, deep in her bones, that she was on the verge of uncovering a truth that would shake the foundations of her world. As they burst out of the alley onto a main street, Sarah caught sight of their reflection in a store window. For a moment, she hardly recognized herself, disheveled, wide-eyed. A far cry from the polished heiress she'd once been or the humble bus driver she'd pretended to be. "We need to get somewhere safe," Tom said, his voice strained. "Somewhere we can decrypt the rest of these files." Sarah nodded, her resolve hardening. "I know a place, but first, tell me everything you know about Project Prometheus." "Who am I, Tom? What did they do to me?" As Tom opened his mouth to answer, a black helicopter appeared over the buildings ahead, its searchlights sweeping the streets. The hunt was far from over, and the answers Sarah sought seemed to only lead to more questions. With the helicopter closing in and their pursuers not far behind, Sarah realized that the next few hours would determine not just her fate, but potentially the fate of something much bigger than she could have ever imagined. The helicopter's rhythmic thump grew louder as Tom maneuvered the SUV through the congested streets of downtown Los Angeles. Sarah's eyes darted between the rearview mirror and the tablet in her hands, her mind reeling from the revelation. "Patient zero," she muttered, tracing the outline of the young boy's face on the screen. "Tom, you need to tell me everything. Now." Tom's knuckles were white on the steering wheel as he swerved to avoid a delivery truck. Project Prometheus was supposed to be humanity's next great leap forward. He began, his voice tight with tension. A way to unlock the full potential of the human mind and body. Sarah's brow furrowed. "And I was... what? Their guinea pig?" Tom shook his head. "You were the breakthrough. Somehow, your genetic makeup was perfect for the procedure. You were the first success after dozens of failures." A chill ran down Sarah's spine as fragmented memories began to surface. Sterile rooms, men in white coats, the acrid smell of antiseptic. "But I don't remember any of this. And why do I look like a boy in this photo?" Before Tom could answer, a bullet shattered the side mirror. Their pursuers were gaining ground. "We need to get off the streets," Tom growled, making a sharp turn into an underground parking garage. The helicopter's searchlight swept past the entrance, momentarily blinding them. As they screeched to a halt in a dark corner of the garage, Tom turned to Sarah, his face grave. "Sarah, the reason you don't remember is that Project Prometheus didn't just enhance your mind and body. It fundamentally altered your DNA, your very identity." Sarah felt the blood drain from her face. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying," Tom hesitated, "that Sarah Blackstone wasn't always Sarah Blackstone. The procedure, it changed everything about you, including your gender." The world seemed to tilt on its axis as Sarah struggled to process this information. Memories she'd long suppressed came flooding back, the confusion, the pain, the gradual transformation that she'd attributed to normal adolescence. "No," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "That's not possible." A banging on the SUV's window jolted them both. Sarah whirled around, expecting to see one of their pursuers. Instead, she found herself staring into the face of the young man from the bus, the one with the Blackstone pin. "Let me in," he shouted, his eyes wild with panic. "They're coming." Tom reached for his gun, but Sarah stopped him. "Wait," she said, a strange feeling of recognition washing over her. She hit the button to unlock the doors. The young man scrambled into the back seat, breathing heavily. "Thank God," he gasped. "I've been trying to catch up with you since the bus." "Who are you?" Tom demanded, his gun still at the ready. The young man met Sarah's eyes in the rearview mirror. "My name is Alex," he said softly. "And I was your twin brother." The silence that followed was deafening. Sarah felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. A twin brother? It was too much to process. The moment was shattered by the screech of tires. 3 black sedans pulled into the garage, blocking the exit. "We need to move," Tom said urgently, reaching for the ignition. "Wait," Alex interjected. "There's another way out. A secret tunnel Blackstone Industries built for emergencies. I can show you." Sarah looked at Tom, then back at Alex. Trust was a luxury she couldn't afford, but right now they were out of options. "Lead the way," she said, grabbing the tablet and the USB drive. As they abandoned the SUV and ran deeper into the dark recesses of the parking garage, Sarah's mind was a whirlwind of questions. Who was she really? What was the true purpose of Project Prometheus? And could she trust this person who claimed to be her brother? The sound of footsteps echoed behind them as they reached a nondescript maintenance door. Alex punched in a code, and the door slid open to reveal a dimly lit tunnel. "Quick!" he urged, ushering them inside. As the door sealed shut behind them, Sarah realized she was stepping not just into a hidden passage, but into the shadows of her own forgotten past. Whatever lay at the end of this tunnel, she knew her life would never be the same again. The truth about Project Prometheus and her own identity was waiting to be uncovered, and Sarah was determined to face it head-on, no matter the cost. The tunnel stretched before them, a concrete artery pulsing with fluorescent light. Sarah, Tom, and Alex moved swiftly, their footsteps echoing in the eerie silence. The weight of revelations hung heavy in the air, each step carrying them further into the labyrinth of Sarah's fractured past. "How long have you known?" Sarah finally broke the silence, her voice barely above a whisper. She directed her question at Alex, studying his familiar yet alien features. Alex's pace faltered for a moment. "I've always known we were twins," he replied, his voice thick with emotion. "But I only learned about Project Prometheus a year ago when he told me you were in danger." Tom, who had been scanning their surroundings vigilantly, chimed in. "And you've been tracking Sarah ever since?" Alex nodded. "It wasn't easy. You're good at disappearing," he said, a hint of admiration in his voice. The trio rounded a corner, coming face to face with a heavy steel door. Alex stepped forward, placing his palm on a concealed scanner. With a pneumatic hiss, the door slid open, revealing a state-of-the-art command center. "Welcome to the Prometheus Sanctuary," Alex announced, ushering them inside. Sarah's eyes widened as she took in the room. Wall-to-wall screens displayed news feeds, security camera footage, and streams of data. In the center stood a holographic projection of what appeared to be a double helix, slowly rotating. "What is this place?" Sarah breathed, her fingers trailing over a nearby console. "It's where Dad coordinated everything," Alex explained. "Project Prometheus, Blackstone Industries, your protection. It all led back here." Tom immediately moved to one of the computer terminals. "We need to decrypt those files," he said urgently. "The answers we need are in there." As Tom worked on the decryption, Sarah turned to Alex. "Tell me everything," she demanded. "From the beginning." Alex took a deep breath, his eyes clouding with memories. "We were born into a world of privilege, but also of great expectations. Mom died when we were young, and Dad, he became obsessed with pushing the boundaries of human potential." He paused, glancing at the rotating DNA model. Project Prometheus was his magnum opus, a way to unlock hidden genetic potential to create, well, superhumans. But it was dangerous, experimental. Most test subjects didn't survive. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. "And I was one of those test subjects?" Alex nodded solemnly. "You were the first success. But the process, it changed you in ways Dad never anticipated. Your gender, your memories, your very identity, all altered." "But why?" Sarah pressed, struggling to keep her voice steady. Why would he do this to his own child? Before Alex could answer, Tom called out from the computer terminal. "I'm in. The files are decrypted." They rushed over, crowding around the screen. What they saw made Sarah's blood run cold. Project Prometheus wasn't just about creating superhumans. It was about creating the perfect sleeper agents, individuals with enhanced abilities who could be programmed and deprogrammed at will. The ultimate spies hidden in plain sight. "Oh my God," Sarah whispered, her hand covering her mouth. I'm not even real. I'm just a construct, a false identity created by this project." Alex grabbed her shoulders, forcing her to look at him. "No, Sarah, you're real. You're my sister, no matter what they did to you. We'll figure this out together." Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the sanctuary. Red lights flashed as security protocols engaged. "They've found us," Tom said grimly, reaching for his weapon. The main screen flickered to life, revealing a face that made Sarah's heart stop. It was her father, Robert Blackstone, looking older and more haggard than she remembered. "Sarah, Alex," he said, his voice filled with urgency. "If you're seeing this, it means I failed to protect you. The enemy is closer than you think. Trust no one, not even each other. The key to stopping them is hidden within Sarah's DNA. You must." The transmission cut off abruptly, replaced by static. In that moment of stunned silence, the sanctuary's main door exploded inward. Armed men in tactical gear poured in, their weapons trained on the trio. Well, a smooth voice cut through the chaos. A man in an impeccable suit stepped forward, his eyes locked on Sarah. "The prodigal daughter returns." Sarah's mind reeled as recognition dawned. It was Charles Devereaux, her father's longtime business partner and her godfather. "Uncle Charlie?" she breathed, confusion etched on her face. Charles smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I'm afraid, my dear, that playtime is over. It's time for Patient Zero to fulfill her true purpose." As the armed men closed in, Sarah realized that the game had changed. The lines between friend and foe, truth and lies, even her own identity, everything was blurred. With her past a fragmented mystery and her future hanging by a thread, Sarah knew that the next few moments would determine not just her fate, but potentially the fate of the entire world. The true nature of Project Prometheus was about to be revealed, and Sarah was at the eye of the storm. The tension in the room was palpable as Charles Devereaux stepped closer, his eyes never leaving Sarah. She felt frozen, caught between the shocking revelations of her past and the very real danger of the present. "Uncle Charlie," Sarah said, fighting to keep her voice steady. "What's going on? What do you mean by my true purpose?" Charles chuckled, a sound devoid of warmth. "Oh, my dear, you've always been so much more than just Robert's daughter. You're the key to reshaping the world. Tom and Alex moved protectively closer to Sarah, their bodies tense and ready for action. You were behind this all along, Tom growled, his hand inching towards his concealed weapon. Perceptive, Agent Reeves. Charles nodded, his smile never wavering. But then again, that's why we recruited you, isn't it? To keep an eye on our precious asset. The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. She turned to Tom, disbelief etched on her face. You're one of them? Tom's expression was a mix of guilt and determination. It's not what you think, Sarah. I was assigned to protect you, but I never knew the full extent of the project. I've been trying to uncover the truth, just like you. Enough of this reunion, Charles interrupted sharply. Sarah, it's time for you to fulfill your destiny. Project Prometheus wasn't just about creating superhumans. It was about creating the perfect vessel for something far greater. As he spoke, one of the armed men approached with a silver briefcase. Charles opened it, revealing a syringe filled with a glowing blue liquid. Within you, he continued, lies the genetic key to unlocking humanity's next evolution. This serum will activate those dormant genes, transforming you into something beyond human imagination. Sarah's mind raced, piecing together fragments of memories and new information. The file transfer, the data about Patient Zero, it wasn't just about me, was it? It was the formula for that serum. Charles's eyes gleamed with approval. Brilliant as always, my dear. Your father may have started this project, but he lost his nerve. He wanted to shut it all down to protect you. But I knew the potential of what we'd created, what you could become. Alex suddenly stepped forward, his face contorted with rage. You bastard! You killed our father, didn't you? A flicker of something, regret, perhaps, crossed Charles's face before it hardened again. Robert made his choice. Now it's time for Sarah to make hers. He gestured, and the armed men raised their weapons, aiming at Tom and Alex. The serum, Sarah. Take it willingly, or watch your brother and your friend die. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest. She looked at the syringe, then at Alex and Tom, her mind whirling with impossible choices. In that moment of indecision, chaos erupted. The lights in the sanctuary suddenly cut out, plunging the room into darkness. The emergency backup kicked in seconds later, bathing everything in a red glow. Gunshots rang out, and Sarah felt someone grab her arm, pulling her down behind a console. Run! It was Alex's voice, urgent and strained. There's another exit. Go! Sarah hesitated, torn between flight and the need to understand, to uncover the full truth about her identity and her purpose. As if reading her thoughts, Tom's voice cut through the mayhem. Sarah, whatever you are, whatever they made you to be, you get to choose who you become. Now go! Making a split-second decision, Sarah grabbed the tablet with the decrypted files and sprinted towards the hidden exit Alex had mentioned. As she ran, she caught glimpses of the chaos behind her, Tom and Alex providing covering fire, Charles shouting orders, the armed men in disarray. She reached a small door camouflaged as part of the wall and wrenched it open. As she slipped through, she heard Charles's voice rise above the din. You can run, Sarah, but you can't hide from who you are. The world's fate rests in your DNA, and sooner or later, you'll have to face your destiny. The door slammed shut behind her, muffling the sounds of battle. Sarah found herself in another tunnel, this one darker and rougher than the last. As she ran, her father's last words echoed in her mind. The key to stopping them is hidden within Sarah's DNA. What did it all mean? Was she a savior or a weapon? A victim or a key player in a grand conspiracy? As the tunnel stretched before her, leading to an unknown destination, Sarah realized that the answers she sought might be more terrifying than the questions. But there was no turning back now. The truth about Project Prometheus, about her identity, about her purpose, lay somewhere ahead. And Sarah was determined to uncover it, no matter the cost. Sarah's footsteps echoed through the narrow tunnel as she ran, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The tablet clutched tightly to her chest. She pushed forward, driven by a cocktail of fear, adrenaline, and an insatiable need for answers. After what felt like hours but was likely only minutes, the tunnel opened up into a vast underground chamber. Sarah slowed to a stop, her eyes widening as she took in her surroundings. The room was filled with rows upon rows of cryogenic pods, each containing a sleeping figure. "What is this place?" she whispered to herself, her voice barely audible over the soft hum of machinery. As if in response, the tablet in her hands suddenly came to life. A holographic projection materialized, revealing the face of her father, Robert Blackstone. "Sarah." The projection spoke, its voice tinged with static. "If you're seeing this, then everything has gone wrong. But there's still hope." Sarah's heart raced as she listened, her eyes darting between the hologram and the sea of cryogenic pods around her. Project Prometheus was never meant to create weapons or super soldiers. Robert's projection continued. It was about saving humanity. "The people you see around you are the last hope for our species." The hologram flickered, showing images of global disasters, pandemics, and climate catastrophes. "We're on the brink of extinction, Sarah. These individuals have been genetically modified to survive what's coming. But they need a key to awaken safely." Sarah's breath caught in her throat as realization dawned. "Me," she whispered. "I'm the key." Robert's face reappeared, his eyes filled with a mixture of pride and sorrow. "Your unique genetic makeup is the bridge between what humanity is and what it needs to become. But it had to be hidden, protected. That's why we changed you. Why we hid the truth even from yourself." Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes as the weight of her father's words sank in. All the confusion, the lost memories, the feeling of not belonging, it all suddenly made sense. Charles and his faction believed that only a chosen few should survive, that they should control humanity's future. Robert's voice grew urgent. "You can't let that happen, Sarah. The choice of how to use your gift must be yours and yours alone." The hologram flickered one last time. "I'm sorry for everything you've been through, for everything we put you through. But I believe in you, Sarah. You have the strength to make the right choice." With those final words, the projection disappeared, leaving Sarah alone in the cavernous room, surrounded by the sleeping forms of humanity's potential future. Her mind reeled as she processed everything she'd learned. She was no longer just Sarah Blackstone or even Patient Zero. She was the linchpin in humanity's fight for survival. Suddenly, the sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the tunnel she'd come from. Sarah's head snapped up, her body tensing for fight or flight. Tom emerged first, his gun drawn but lowered when he saw Sarah. Alex followed close behind, supporting a limping and bloodied Charles Devereaux. "It's over, Sarah," Tom said softly. "Charles's men have been neutralized. It's time to end this." Charles, despite his injuries, managed a sardonic laugh. "End it? My dear girl, it's only just beginning. You've seen what's at stake now. Join us. Help us shape the future of humanity." Alex stepped forward, his eyes pleading. "Don't listen to him, Sarah. Dad believed in you, in your ability to make the right choice, whatever that may be." Sarah looked around the room, at the faces of her brother, her protector, and the man who had been both mentor and betrayer. Then her gaze swept over the countless pods, each containing a human life hanging in the balance. The weight of the world pressed down on her shoulders. In that moment, Sarah realized that her entire life, her altered memories, her changed identity, her hidden powers had been leading to this choice. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and made her decision. "I know what I have to do," Sarah said, her voice steady and resolute. As she opened her eyes, a new strength radiated from within her. Whatever came next, Sarah knew that the fate of humanity rested in her hands, and she was ready to face it head-on. Sarah stood tall, her decision made. The air in the cavernous room seemed to crackle with tension as all eyes fixed upon her. "I won't be anyone's puppet," she declared, her voice echoing off the walls. "Not yours, Charles, and not my father's. This gift, this burden, it's mine to bear, and I'll use it as I see fit." Charles's face contorted with frustration. "You don't understand the magnitude of what's at stake," We need control to ensure humanity's survival. No, Sarah countered firmly. What humanity needs is a chance. A fair chance for everyone, not just your chosen few. She turned to the nearest cryogenic pod, placing her hand on its cool surface. As if responding to her touch, the pod's systems hummed to life, its occupants stirring within. Tom stepped forward, his expression a mix of awe and concern. Sarah, what are you doing? What I was meant to do, she replied, a subtle glow beginning to emanate from her skin. I'm giving humanity a fighting chance. As she spoke, Sarah felt a surge of energy coursing through her body. The dormant genes within her, the culmination of Project Prometheus, were finally awakening. Knowledge flooded her mind, understanding of the genetic modifications, the challenges facing humanity, and how to activate the sleeping individuals safely. One by one, the pods began to activate. The chamber filled with the sound of hissing hydraulics and beeping monitors as hundreds, then thousands of genetically modified humans began to awaken. This is madness, Charles shouted, struggling against Alex's grip. You'll doom us all. But Sarah wasn't listening. Her focus was entirely on the awakening process, guiding it with her newfound abilities. She could feel each individual's genetic makeup, ensuring their safe transition from cryosleep to consciousness. As the first pod opened, a young woman stepped out, disoriented but alive. Others followed, a diverse array of humanity, each carrying the genetic keys to survive the coming challenges. Alex watched in amazement. It's working, he breathed. You're actually doing it. Tom moved to Sarah's side, his earlier doubts replaced by determination. What do you need us to do? Sarah turned to them, her eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. Protect them, guide them. They'll be confused, scared. They need to understand their purpose. For hours, Sarah worked tirelessly, awakening and stabilizing each individual. Tom, Alex, and even a subdued Charles found themselves helping the newly awakened, explaining the situation and providing support. As the last pod opened, Sarah finally allowed herself to relax. The glow faded from her skin, and she swayed slightly, exhausted but triumphant. It's done, she said softly. The chamber, once silent and eerie, now buzzed with life and conversation. Thousands of individuals, each carrying humanity's hope for survival, stood ready to face the future. Charles, who had watched the proceedings with a mix of anger and begrudging admiration, finally spoke. You've started something you can't control, Sarah. The world out there isn't ready for this. Sarah turned to him, her eyes filled with a wisdom beyond her years. Maybe not, but it's not for us to decide who gets to survive, who gets to evolve. We give everyone a chance and face whatever comes together. She addressed the crowd, her voice carrying across the chamber. Each of you carries within you the potential to help humanity survive the challenges ahead. But how we use this gift, how we shape our future, that's a choice we must make together. As murmurs of agreement spread through the crowd, Sarah felt a sense of purpose settle over her. The path ahead would be difficult, filled with challenges she could scarcely imagine. But for the first time since this wild journey began, she felt truly at peace with who and what she was. Tom approached her, a small smile on his face. So, what's our next move? Sarah looked out over the sea of faces, each one representing a thread in humanity's complex tapestry. We prepare, she said firmly. We learn, and then we face the world and whatever it throws at us. As the newly awakened began to organize themselves, Sarah knew that this was just the beginning. The true test of Project Prometheus and of humanity itself was yet to come. But with the truth finally unveiled and her power awakened, Sarah was ready to lead humanity into its uncertain but hopeful future. The weeks following the mass awakening were a whirlwind of activity. The vast underground complex, once a secret sanctuary, had transformed into a bustling command center for humanity's next chapter. Sarah stood at the heart of it all, a beacon of leadership in a sea of uncertainty. Her unique abilities allowed her to help the awakened individuals understand and control their genetic enhancements, while also coordinating efforts to face the looming global crises. On this particular morning, Sarah found herself in a makeshift war room, surrounded by screens displaying news from around the world. Natural disasters, political upheavals, and signs of impending ecological collapse flashed before her eyes. "It's happening faster than we anticipated," Alex said, his face grim as he studied the reports. Tom, who had become Sarah's right-hand man, nodded in agreement. "We need to move our people to the surface soon. We can't stay hidden forever." Sarah took a deep breath, centering herself. "You're right. It's time we introduced ourselves to the world." As if on cue, Charles Devereaux was escorted into the room by 2 guards. Despite being under constant supervision, he had proven to be a valuable asset, his knowledge of global power structures and hidden resources crucial to their plans. "I hope you realize the chaos you're about to unleash," Charles said, his tone a mixture of warning and resignation. Sarah met his gaze steadily. "Sometimes the world needs a little chaos to evolve. But we're not here to conquer or control. We're here to help humanity survive and thrive." She turned to address the room at large. "Our first teams will surface in key locations around the globe. We'll offer our assistance in dealing with the most pressing crises: natural disasters, disease outbreaks, food shortages. We show the world that we're here to help, not to dominate." As Sarah spoke, her skin began to glow softly, her connection to the awakened individuals humming in the background of her consciousness. She could feel their readiness, their determination to face the challenges ahead. "What about the governments, the military?" one of the advisors asked. "They might see us as a threat." "That's why we need to be transparent," Sarah replied. "We go public with our story, our purpose. We offer to work alongside existing structures, not to replace them." The room burst into activity as final preparations were made. Sarah felt a hand on her shoulder and turned to see Alex, his eyes shining with a mixture of pride and concern. "You know, when we were kids, I always thought I'd be the one protecting you," he said with a small smile. "I never imagined my little sister would end up saving the world." Sarah pulled him into a tight hug. "We're saving it together, all of us." As the first teams prepared to leave the sanctuary, Sarah made her way to the main entrance. Thousands of enhanced individuals gathered, ready to face the world above. Sarah raised her voice, addressing the crowd. "Each of you carries within you the hope for humanity's future. But remember, our enhancements don't make us superior. They give us the responsibility to help, to heal, to lead by example. We face this new world not as conquerors, but as guardians." A cheer went up from the crowd, a sound filled with hope and determination. As the massive doors began to open, sunlight streamed in for the first time in months. Sarah stepped forward, flanked by Alex and Tom, ready to lead humanity into its new era. The world above was changing, facing challenges that threatened to tear it apart. But as Sarah looked at the faces of those around her, each one carrying the genetic keys to survival, each one committed to facing the future together, she felt a surge of hope. Whatever trials lay ahead, whatever obstacles they would face, Sarah knew that humanity now had a fighting chance. The legacy of Project Prometheus, born in secrecy and controversy, would now be written in the open, its true purpose finally realized. As they took their first steps into the sunlight, Sarah's voice carried on the wind, a promise to the world they were about to change. "We are the children of Prometheus, bearers of the flame of hope. And together, we will forge a new future for all of humanity." The door closed behind them, the underground sanctuary now empty, but its purpose had been fulfilled. The next chapter of human history was about to be written, and Sarah Blackstone, once a mystery even to herself, would be holding the pen. The end was just the beginning. Thank you very much for listening to this story. Comment below what you thought of the ending and from which city you're listening to us. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more, click on the next story that's appearing on your screen now. Leave your like and subscribe to our channel so we can build a huge community that shares inspiring stories together. See you soon.